Please. Tony, do we have a quorum, please?
Mayor Moss, we have a quorum.
My goodness, that loud, mic's loud. This time, would you please rise, and Pastor Eric Kirkendall of Trinity Bible Church will lead us in invocation and the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pray. Father, your word says that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, and that includes these great folks in front of me and these folks behind me. So thank you for their life. Thank you for the work they do. Thank you for the improvements they make to this great city. And I pray that you would bless the mayor and his team as he seeks to help this place flourish for every man, woman, and child. So would you bless this team of people that seek to serve others, to put the needs of others before their own, and would you bless them? And as your scripture says, may those who water and refresh, may they themselves be watered and refreshed. And so for this leadership, the leadership of this city, would you water and refresh them as they water and refresh so many? In Jesus' great name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Were there any public comments, Tony?
No, sir.
Thank you. First item is to approve City Council meeting minutes of January the 28th, 2025. Do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the City Council meeting minutes dated January 28th, 2025.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Next item is the approval of the first quarter financial update report by Jake Weber, CBA. Jake, you're up.
All right, good evening. This is going over the first fiscal quarter of the year, period ending December 31st. If you kind of look again, I'll run through the summary, and if there are any questions along the way, please let me know. No major surprises to start the year, which is good. And, you can see all three funds starting at a surplus, in some ways as expected based on timing. So, general fund, you can see starting the year at the surplus of about $421,000. Part of that's just the timing of the property tax payments. We're starting to get those in December. We'll also start to get those in January. So that's hard to track our progress yet to see where we're going. Obviously, we should be good there in terms of the rate and what we have. We'll know more at the next meeting in terms of, collections and making sure we're tracking where we need to be there. Sales tax, right on budget. It's up about $14,000 from prior year, but otherwise that's tracking with what we budgeted there. And then just expenses, you can kind of see there 25%, so a quarter of the way through. Nothing real unusual on that. Again, mostly operational. That's tracking where we need to be as well. Water fund, so you can see you're up $223,000 on that fund. Part of that, the surplus is, you think our first debt payment is not till February 15th, so you're going to have some surplus built in there, and then that will come out. User fees, right on track with budget. We're down about $15,000 from last year. There is one thing I was going to point out, the legal expense related to some litigation on the water line. So that number is about $113,000 this year, which we only budgeted $50,000. So that's a little bit over. Everything else, though, again, looks in line with where we should be. And then wastewater, you can see we're up $360,000, but again, some of that, if I were to pull out interest on some of the bond, that we still have some funds in there, and also the debt issuance cost on the bond that was just issued, we're plus $321,000 on that. So again, we're in good shape there. User fees, again, in line with budget and up $94,000 from last year. The other item I just point out is the $5 million was funded in December, so for the water line extension. But otherwise, everything looks, in good shape so far this year.
Any question for Jake?
So, question for staff. So the agreement with Hudson Oaks on the waste treatment plant. When do we see that? They're supposed to make an investment, correct?
Yes, sir. There's a discussion, negotiation right now to expand the plant that we're talking with Hudson Oaks. I believe, are they taking it to their council? Yes, in the coming months, right? Yeah. Their investment would be 25% of the total cost of the plant. And so obviously the expansion, they will pay for that expansion as well. And so that's, we're building it at 750. We're pricing an expansion up to 1 million. Hudson Oaks would be responsible for that expansion, and then 25% of the operational cost of the plant.
Were they making an initial investment?
Yes, they would make an initial investment. Yes, sir.
What was that, about 3 million or something like that? Right?
Probably closer to 4 to 5 million.
Okay, and that's a one-time initial payment? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And you expect that to be second quarter, third quarter this year potentially?
Probably, yeah. It really depends on, they're going to issue debt for the entire project. So when they get their engineering and alignment done, they'll issue the debt, and that debt debt payment will come to us.
Okay.
Thank
We
you.
would just need to make sure we
Yep,
get our timing right in terms of
yes,
paying the expansion and getting that payment ahead of time.
yes. We've communicated that to
Yeah.
Hudson Oaks.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, or do we have a motion to accept?
Make a motion to approve first quarter financial report as presented by Mr. Weber.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 3, for approval of an ordinance annexing approximately 7,313 feet or 10.98 acres of East Bankhead Highway right-of-way from the city's existing city limits to FM 1187, more particularly described as property out of the Eliza Oxer Survey, abstract number 1031, James R. Brown Survey, abstract number 9, Thomas Freeman Survey, abstract number 475, Francisco Sanchez Survey, abstract number 2346, and F.H. Hammond Survey, abstract number 673, and approving a service plan for the annexed property.
Mr. Chesser.
Yes, council, this is the first leg of our annexation to get the Belledine Ranch. This is down Bankhead. It's contiguous with our city limits. It will go 7,313 feet from Bankhead, approximately 10.98 acres of land, and then that will be contiguous with the Beltran. This, we had to wait until 20 days after the public hearing to pass this, and so that's what we're here tonight, is to pass this first step in the annexation process. Have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions for Pat? The motion is at the bottom. Do we have a motion, please?
Do we need to read the ordinance, Captain?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve City Ordinance 917-25, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Little Park, Texas, annexing approximately 7,313 feet of East Bankhead right-of-way comprising approximately 10.98 acres of land pursuant to Section 43.1055, Subchapter C-1 of Chapter 43 of the Texas Local Government Code, and providing for the extension of the boundary limits of said city so as to include said 10.98 acres within the city limits, and granting to said property and to all future inhabitants of said property all of the rights and privileges of other citizens, and binding said future inhabitants by all of the acts and ordinances of the said city, approving an annexation service plan for the area, directing filing of a certified copy of the ordinance and annexation service plan with the Parker County Clerk, and declaring an effective date.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Item number 4, for approval of ordinance annexing approximately 317.732 acres of land owned by the Belledine Ranch LTD more particularly described as part of the F.H. Hammond Survey, abstract number 673, the heirs of Francisco Sanchez Survey, abstract number 2346, and H.T. and B.R.R. Company Survey number 5. Abstract number 647, situated in Parker County, Texas, embracing all of parcel 4, the 336-1000 acres tract described in the deed of John Henry Dean III, recorded in volume 1441, page 424 of the official public records of Parker County, Texas, and approving a services agreement for the annexed property. Pat.
Council, this is the annexation of the Veldine Ranch, which is approximately 317.732 acre tract. As you're aware, we have a development agreement with Veldine Ranch Limited, and as part of that development agreement is the annexation of this tract. This is contiguous with the East Makehead Highway we just annexed, and once we pass this ordinance, it will now become a part of the city limits of the city of Willow Park. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you. Any questions for Pat? Could we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 918-25, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Willow Park, Texas, annexing approximately 317.732 acres of land pursuant to a petition submitted by the owners of the land and providing for the extension of the boundary limits of said city so as to include said 317.732 acres within the city limits, and granting to said property and to all future inhabitants of said property all of the rights and privileges of other citizens, and binding said future inhabitants by all of the acts and ordinances of the said city, approving an annexation services agreement for the area, directing filing of a certified copy of the ordinance and annexation services agreement with the Parker County Clerk, and declaring an effective date.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Welcome, City of Willow Park, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Thank you, council. Next item, for approval, an interlocal agreement with Parker County ESD number 1 for the allocation of sales tax on approximately 317.732 acre tract being annexed by the city.
Yes, so with the previous act of annexing, Mr. Bell, any sales tax that's collected out there is entitled to ESD number 1 through a vote that was conducted, I think, in 2021. And so we have negotiated a sales tax sharing agreement with ESD. They have passed, this version in November. It would allocate, of the 1.5% available total, it would allocate 0.75% to the City of Willow Park. It is for a 20-year agreement that shall be renewed for an additional 20 years. Staff recommends passage of the ESD agreement.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. Grimes, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve an interlocal agreement with the Parker County ESD number 1 for the allocation of sales tax on the approximate 317.732 acre tract being annexed by the city.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
You got that?
Rock, paper, scissors?
Pick one.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Next item, to add and revise 2025 Board of Adjustment appointments and correct the roster.
Mayor and council, we just had an error on the last month's roster that we adopted, that the place identification for Mike Caldwell was accidentally omitted, and so this is just correcting that error.
Okay, do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to add and revise the 2025 Board of Adjustment appointments and correct the roster as presented. Michael Chandler in place 1.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Next item for approval of sponsorship for 760 Fest Art and Music Festival. Rose.
Yes, sir. It snuck up on me. Real quick, just to go over this, there's a festival coming to the district, which, as you know, is our new venue that we have here in the city, at the end of April. It is going to be run by the people that do 760 Magazine, so that's Clint and Christy Reese. A lot of you are probably familiar with them already. I met with Christy last week, and this is a really cool event. This is something that's going to be really exciting and really fun to have in our city. And I think it's going to be something that's really unique to our area. That gives us a really good opportunity as a city, because one of the things that hot funds are supposed to be for is this type of event and this type of expenditure. So I am proposing that we take the diamond level sponsorship for the event, which essentially gives us our logo on all of the posters and all of the other benefits there on down. So I think it's a great opportunity for us. I'm happy to take any questions from you guys if y'all have anything you'd like to know.
How much was the sponsorship?
$12,500.
Okay.
Does that have hot tax? Or?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Any questions for Rose?
Hey, Rose, I saw the date on that. What's the time frame?
10 to 10.
10 to 10, okay.
One-day event?
Yes, sir. It's a Saturday.
Is that PM to AM or AM to PM?
That would be AM to PM. It is a family-friendly event, so the 3 AM crowd's not really gonna do the job there.
You know, you never know when KJ is just going to go wander down to the district and.
Do we have
start
a
partying.
motion? Do we have a motion, please?
I have one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know I think we have way more than this in our balance for our hot tax. We should go back to our financial report, but.
When I inquired about it last week, I think the balance was, and Jay? Oh,
He
it's
left.
not here anymore. Someone out here who knows,
187,000 and change, I don't remember.
$500,000.
Thank you.
yeah, not quite $500,000.
It will be by the end of the month.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion for approval of sponsorship for the 760 Fest Art and Music Festival.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you,
Yay.
Rose.
Thank you, guys.
Park survey and analytics results.
Okay, so I'm not going to get too deep into the results of the survey themselves. We will discuss them a little bit at the end of this presentation. You should have a copy of all of those in your packet. What I did want to talk a little bit is about what our goals were and whether or not we achieved them. So our goal here was to get a statistically accurate scientific sample of our population. And I feel like we did that, but I want to show you a little bit of why I feel that way and where we can improve for the next survey going forward. Just to kind of run down our methodology here and how we got the word out about getting people to register for surveys. We did a postcard for every utility account in the city that went directly to their mailboxes. We distributed flyers at all the apartment complexes and townhomes. We did registration sign-up events everywhere where the city was present. We did yard signs that were placed in the parks that had the registration QR code. We had registration information at the utility billing counter in City Hall. We had registration information discussed at multiple city council meetings and parks board meetings. We did an SMS, that's text messages, campaign. We did email campaigns, and we did website notifications. We did postings on Facebook, Instagram, and Nextdoor, as well as shares in local community social media groups and pages. And then we also had coverage in the community news, which is not run by the city, 5 different mentions on the Willow Park Civics page and the What's Happening Willow Park Facebook page. And Flash Vote themselves also ran an SMS campaign. We ran the registration for 90 days. As we neared the end of registration, we did take a look at the demographics. We divided it up by neighborhood and by age, and we looked at those areas and we said, are there any areas that we feel are underrepresented, that we may have less than we have from the other neighborhoods? And we looked and said, okay, is there anybody else we want to reach out to add more registrants? We ended up having about 325 sign up, which is actually a pretty good number for us. If you guys will recall, in 2021, when we launched the alert system, when we did door hangers on everybody's door that said, we'd like you to sign up for the system, we actually had a lower rate of return than we had on this survey registration. So we're making really good progress as far as being able to get people connected with us. Looking at that analysis, of the 319 that were invited, we had 186 participants. That gives us roughly a 7% margin of error. If you want to compare that numbers to our numbers from 2019, the last time we did a park survey, we had 141 participants in 2019. So more participants this time, plus our methodology is more sound this time. To give you guys a little bit of background without getting too nerdy and in the weeds on this, the amount of people that you have respond, like the percentage of your population, really doesn't matter for something like this. The idea is, did we get enough to get a scientifically sound sample? And the answer to that question is yes, we did. Because the total number of responses are what matters. The three things that you need to determine statistically valid input is, do you have a sufficient number of responses? We check that box. Are these respondents randomly selected and not self-selected? We'll talk about that in a second. And are the questions well structured? As far as the structure of the questions go, we relied on the very smart guys at FlashVote to make sure that those questions were structured in a way that we knew we were getting scientifically sound responses. It is also considered to be a sufficient number of responses for our population. As a matter of fact, we have a higher number of responses proportionally than a lot of other much larger cities. So we did really well on responses considering. The self-selected responses, there's often a situation that happens, particularly when you run a survey for a very long amount of time, where you get a lot of people that are passionate about a particular topic and they self-select. So for example, using the park survey as an example, if there was a really large contingent of people who really loved rock climbing, and we let this survey sit for a month, all of those rock climbers are going to pass around that survey, and then we're going to get a disproportionate number of people who love rock climbing that have responded to the survey, and it's not going to be statistically valid. The way that it was explained to me is, you have a bag of M&Ms, and someone has already gone through and pulled out all the M&Ms that aren't green, and you start pulling M&Ms out, then you're going to get the impression that all of those M&Ms in that bag are green, that all M&Ms are always green. What we did is we grabbed a bag of M&Ms that has not been messed with. So we get to see all of the different colors and all of the different representation there. So statistically not valid, statistically valid. The 48-hour window and the fact that we randomly selected our participants is how we help eliminate that self-selection. Now, we did have a little of that. We did have some people, there were definitely a couple of neighborhoods that we saw responses had been pushed around and the surveys had been pushed around, so a lot of people got in and participated, and we love them for that. We love the extra level of participation, and we think that's great. But also, we have to look at that data versus the data of the people that were randomly selected to get our results. So what did we learn? Besides the survey results themselves, which I think are pretty good results and help us, a lot of these things were things we were thinking already. And so it really helps reinforce that some of our ideas here are ideas that the public likes. A couple of things that I'd like for us to do differently is I think we need to give a little bit of notice to people that the survey is going to be coming out. I think there were some folks that were probably taken by surprise for it. So for our next survey, I think I want to do a little bit more notification. Hey, this is coming your way, please expect it. And there's only a 48-hour window to respond. So I think we can do a little bit better job of communicating on the next one. And then the other thing I want to look at is the data on timing. Do we do it on a weekend? Do we do it in the middle of the week? When are we more likely to get more of a participation response? But of the 19 that were invited, the ones that didn't participate, it could have been for a number of reasons. It could have been the timing. It could have been that they didn't see their email. And it could have been that parks just wasn't that interesting of a topic to them. So there's a number of reasons, and I'm not going to claim to be a mind reader, but I do know there are some things we can do to maybe increase participation next time. These results will be used to update the conceptual plan for Kingsgate Park and our overall Parks and Trails Master Plan. So we'll take a look at these numbers, we'll work through them, and we'll kind of figure out what do we want to do with it, with the fantastic feedback that we've been given. We're also going to start planning on future survey topics. Our plan is actually to do communications as the next survey. Because one of the things that we found to be really interesting here is I don't have the data in front of me, but I actually kept a calendar of when we did the postcards, when we did the signs, when we did the SMS messaging, and how many signups we got for each of those versions of the campaign. So our communications survey will then take kind of that gist and say, okay, how do people want to be reached and what information would they like to know? But this gives me a really good basis to know how to structure that particular survey. Going forward to the actual survey results themselves, we had a lot of really good responses, and we had a really balanced group that responded. Walking trails and concrete paths and shade structures seem to really be a high priority here. And Leah, jump in if I missed something, because I know you've gone through these too. As far as a priority at Kingsgate Park, restrooms were way up there. I think we all saw that coming. And then as far as, go back over here. Shade structures, playground equipment was another popular option, and picnic areas and benches were another option. So these were all things that we'd been looking at already. So I think this gives us some really good guidance. If you guys want to nerd out a little harder on the survey results and get into specific demographics, my door is open. I'm happy to nerd out with you. But that concludes all the information I have for today. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Rose. Any questions for Rose?
What's the next step? What's the process, timelines, things like that,
For the park stuff or for
Yeah.
the survey stuff?
for the park stuff?
That would be a question that the Mayor Pro Tem can answer much better than I can.
I think what we're going to be working on within our Parks Department is revising the conceptual plan for Kingsgate Park based on the information. Just to remind you, Westwood put together a very elaborate, lot of different options for Kingsgate Park, and this survey will help us scale that back to what was the priorities, and then put those in phases so that if we want to invest in some of that in the next year, we're going to have the conceptual plan created from this data.
And so going into next fiscal year budget, that's when we're going to start seeing where we're going to.
Could be this year, could be next. It's, first step is get that conceptual plan revised, having council approve that conceptual plan so we all agree, more shade structures, more concrete paths. You know, we look at the things that were selected and we have that conceptual plan with that, approve that by council, and then talk about funding.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next item, to form a chief of police hiring committee. I'd like to present the council. I'd like myself, Eric, and Sean to be on that committee. Could we get a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion to appoint the committee for police chief hiring, as Doyle has recommended.
Can I step in? If anybody would need another, I'd love to serve as an alternate or serve on the committee as well if needed, just in case somebody can't make it for whatever reason. I'd love to serve as well.
We'll make Nate an alternate.
I'll make a motion to appoint Eric, Sean, and Doyle to the committee with Nate as an alternate.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion?
What I would say on this one is if we do have anybody in the community that would like to call me or anybody as far as if they have things that they would like to see in hiring a police chief, you can always call me. My phone number is area code 817-901-9949. I give it out all the time, so please call me.
All in favor? Thank you. We're going into executive session at 6:28 PM. Consultation with attorney, City of Willow Park, Half and Associates, Section 55107 for personnel matters. City Council may interview candidates for city secretary position, application review, discussion, consideration, and/or employment offers among candidates. Section 551071, consultation with attorney, 551072, deliberation regarding real property, 120 El Chico Trail lease agreements, Chapter 380 agreement between the city and Politos Westland Willow Park LLC, and Chapter 380 agreement between the city and Far Out Hospitality. We'll be in executive session.
Deanna McMullen, the position of city secretary, and the salary amount of $80,000 per year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Comments, council, anyone have a
I
comment?
want to thank Tony for putting up with us for these last several months.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think over the last couple of days, there's been a lot of chatter on social media, and there was some comments that were extremely disappointing. And our acting police chief, Quincy Hamilton, is the best. He is a phenomenal person, and anybody who makes any kind of comments like that is extremely disappointing, and we don't need that in Willow Park.
Thank you.
Amen.
Anyone else?
Totally agree.
Mr. Grimes?
February 17th is a holiday for the city, President's Day, so city offices will be closed. On Thursday, we're going to have TMRS come in here and visit with all the employees about their retirement, so we may be shorthanded or kind of doing some stuff in the morning, getting those things taken care of. And then there was another announcement, and I forgot what it was, so it doesn't matter. Pat Chester's awesome. That's my last comment.
This Monday morning, the county judge and the commissioners court recognized the city of Willow Park for their strategic planning and development. And it was Councilman Eric was there, Councilman Gilliland and Brian, Tony, and Rose was there. So it was, we appreciate very much the comments that the county had for the city. I'd like to thank the council and staff, Mr. Grimes, for the work on the annexation. I think we started this in '23,
Yes, sir.
end of '23.
No, sir. September of 23.
So that's what I'm saying, the end of to September '23. So thank you very much. It's been a long, hard road, but we got there, and I appreciate your help very much. So happy Valentine's, everyone. Motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.